to Mushroom Oasis. My name is Aria, and let's get it started. He just asked me about breakfast, I believe. Sounds delicious. Great. I'll see you in the kitchen then. He tucked away his knitting materials and then set it aside. Oh, I also have a surprise for you after breakfast. It's not the most exciting surprise, but just join me when you're ready. He ducked into the kitchen without another glance. I could hear his boots thud about the floorboards, cabinets opening and closing in succession in the kitchen. I suppose that's my cue. I rolled out of bed, leaving the warmth of Michael's blankets, and trotting over to the door Michael pointed out. Stepping inside, I didn't know what I was expecting when he said he had a bathroom, but it was surprisingly spacious. Everything looked like it was carved and polished out of wood. He seemed to have everything you'd find in a modern bathroom: a sink with a cabinet, a shower and a tub, and even a toilet. Curious, I crept over to the toilet, in particular, inspecting it. There wasn't a tank like you'd expect, where the water would be stored. Instead, there was a compartment to the side full of sawdust and a scoop. I expected it to have at least a bit of a smell, but it was surprisingly odorless. There was even a roll of toilet paper on the side. It was no flushing system, but it was hygienic. Michael must have done his research. Walking over to the sink, I started the faucet before hesitantly twisting it. I jumped when I heard the rush of water pouring in, swirling in the basin before disappearing to who knows where. Wow. Why am I impressed by a damn functioning bathroom sink? I helped with the dishes last night. I already knew Michael had plumbing. Shaking my head, I finished freshening up and headed to the kitchen. Michael looked up as I entered, a steaming kettle in his hand with two empty mugs on the counter. It might have been the light, but he was taller than I remembered. Glancing to the table, I could see he already finished plating up our food. Oh, wow. You work fast. Michael looked proud of himself. Can't have my guests stay on an empty stomach. Go on, have a seat. I'll join you in a moment. I returned his smile and sat down, stomach grumbling as I looked at our plates. Once again, Michael was generous with the serving size. Flat slices of bread were toasted perfectly with crisp, buttered sides, bright red tomato slices, and crisp salad peeking underneath the fluffy eggs. That actually looks really good. It looked amazingly tantalizing, the smell of savory herbs wafting into my nose. My mouth watered. Michael sat down, a steaming mug beside me, after settling into his own seat. Peeking above the rim, I could see small flowers floating about, tinting the water yellow. It faintly smelled of apples. I recognized the yellow dried pellets on the tea packing I've seen before. Oh, chamomile! He nodded. I hope you like it. I'm sure I will. His smile widened, his tail swaying at the tip by his feet. He seemed more relaxed, showing his natural features this morning. Any trace of panic and hesitation from last night were gone, replaced by a look of contentment. Michael bit into his toast, and I followed suit. The food was delicious, as I expected. The chunk of toast I bit into was heavenly, the butter sweet on my tongue. The tomato and salad provided a nice crisp balance, And the eggs. Something about simple home cooked food is just the best. Michael was happy to eat in silence, occasionally looking up at me as I enjoyed my food. He'd smile when our eyes met, his bottom pair narrowing into a happy squint. I wonder if he'd been open to some questions. Hey, hmm? Do you mind if I ask? Okay, let's save. Okay. How did you learn to cook? Cottage pie is a pretty complicated recipe. I just wonder if anyone taught you how to cook it. I'd be lucky if someone could teach me how to make boiled eggs, Firefly. But it was trial and error mostly. My earlier endeavors were, uh, pretty much inedible. I picked up a thing or two about cooking though, so your taste buds aren't gonna fall victim to any nasty creations like in my early days at least. Uh, Speaking of, did you enjoy dinner last night? Of course I did. You're a really good cook, Michael. I'm glad. It probably wasn't obvious, but I'm really happy I got to cook for you. I don't get guests often, in case you couldn't tell. I should ask you to cook for me every day then. He grinned at my joke, looking pleased. I'd be happy to. I chuckled as I took another bite. So, what's your favorite thing to cook? He lit up at the question. Fried mushrooms. Fried mushrooms? Yeah, there's plenty to find and it's easy to make. Huh. I do remember finding a patch of mushrooms yesterday. They smelled pretty funky though. You remember that? Hmm? What was that? Nothing. Nothing. Anyways, mushrooms were the only thing I had for a while before figuring out I could eat other stuff like roots and veggies. Do you forage all your ingredients? Mostly, yeah. The times I figured out how to catch fish and hunt game were the best of my life, I'll tell you that. My first taste of meat? He did an awkward version of a chef's kiss, as if mimicking something he had saw on television once. Mom, yeah. He was trying to say Mamma Mia. He continued before I could even dwell on it for a second longer. But nothing beats what you humans are able to make. You guys go nuts with ingredients. Rice was a challenge. It's a precious ingredient since I have to actually get some from a store. But once I figured out how to make it nice and fluffy, I considered it a special treat. I did a double take. You go to the store? Yeah. Where else would I get it? I, I thought you wouldn't grow. I thought you would grow it yourself. Or something. He laughed, and I flushed in embarrassment. It's flattering you think I'm even capable of something that impressive. But no. There's only so much the forest can provide. But what about money? We're talking about human currency, right? Otherwise, how would you even... Do you actually have a job? A thought occurred to me. Or did you steal it? He almost looked offended. Do you do you take me for a criminal? No, no, no. But that would mean. Then how? Michael bit into his toast, his two eyes winking in mischief. I have ways, Firefly. What's that supposed to mean? Save. How do you have plumbing in your house? What's it like living in the woods? I know it's a silly question, but I can't stop thinking about it. Oh, you were wondering about that? An embarrassed look on my face was probably enough of an answer. Uh-huh. Well, it's nothing fascinating. It's just rainwater I've got stored above the cabin. Just rainwater? He nodded. I detected a hint of pride as he continued. It's actually a recent installment, believe it or not. Granted, the project took a while gathering materials, figuring out the tools, finding the right instruction manuals. Plus, I had to figure out where to store the water tank. And don't worry, I installed a filtration system so it's safe for us to use. I check in every few weeks to make sure nothing's contaminated. That sounded daunting, especially considering he lived all the way out here in the woods. You did all that on your own? I kinda had to. Anyway, it took a whole lot of calibrating and adjusting, but it really worked out. And now that I think about it, I'm glad you get to be comfortable here during your stay too. Does that answer your question? Save. Where'd you learn how to do all that? I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. There was a faint hint of exhaustion in his eyes. But to answer your question, I go to libraries a lot. It's where I learn about a majority of things. The fact that he even ventured into buildings at all really surprised me. And if I'm real lucky, they have all these neat DIYs and workshop manuals archived for anyone to browse through. It took a while to figure everything out. A really long time, actually. But hey, I had nothing but time. And it paid off. I'm considering upgrading the toilet next, but for now, the composting setup works fine. Learned about that in an old camping guide. He paused to take a breath, as if he hadn't talked this much in a while. I'm rambling, but that's how I did it. Is there anything else you'd like to ask? Wait, you've been to libraries? His ears perked up, posture straightening. Oh yeah, I can't tell you enough how much books have helped me. I've made it this far only because I quickly figured out how to read. Well, figured out that I can read. Do you visit often? In my early days, any chance I could get. Nowadays I stick to my side of the forest though. Gotta make sure people don't wander too far off than they're meant to. I paused in my chewing at the teasing lilt in his voice. Hey! I'm joking. Anyways, if you're wondering what I do about this, he gestured towards his face. I just have to make sure everything's covered. You'd be surprised how little people pay attention to me when I bundle up just right. Do people not give you trouble? He shrugged nonchalantly. Small town libraries are usually so empty from my experience. People just mind their own business there. Huh, I guess that's true. I can't remember the last time I visited a library. I guess libraries would be Michael's equivalent to the World Wide Web. I should introduce him to the internet sometime. Actually, maybe not. Not without parental controls. Finally satisfied, I nodded and went back to eating my food. What's it like living in the woods? I still can't believe how cozy you've managed to make it, considering the whole middle of nowhere thing. It wasn't like this when I found it. No? It was a major, fix her up her? So the cabin was abandoned. I never would have guessed. Yeah, I'm really happy I get to live somewhere permanent for once. It's not much, but it's home. What's it like? Peaceful? Quiet? I do like it a lot. The forest provides me with everything I need. And nobody bothers me for the way I look out here. His ears twitched slightly. Sometimes you just happen to end up where it's most convenient for you and everyone else. The way he avoided my eyes as he said that gave me the impression there's something more to it. Like his home wasn't just out of convenience, but a fear of something else. Rejection, perhaps? Or something worse. Anyways, I don't really have anything else to say about it unless there's something specific you want to ask. He doesn't think about his answer much before beaming at me. What about you? I know you told me a little bit about yourself, but what's it like being you? I scoffed, waving a hand. Please, I'm the least interesting person in this room, trust me. His eyes were shining in earnest as he leaned forward. Tell me anyway. Oh, well. I told him about my life, at least the parts I was comfortable with sharing. Just like last night, his eyes didn't leave my face, occasionally darting about my features and interest. The direct ogling was making me nervous, but I suppose I was doing the exact same thing when it was his turn to talk. Eventually, I came to the topic of my job and the woes of living in modern capitalism. I am a bit jealous. You have the whole cottagecore aesthetic practically perfect. His face morphed into a confused pout. Cottagecore? I explained it to him in my own words. Oh, you're saying you want to live the way I do? Out in the woods? I nodded without hesitation. I mean, I wouldn't mind showing you the ropes. His tone seemed strangely lilted. What do you mean? Never mind. Anyways, I don't get what the appeal is, but it's not easy either, you know. The force provides, but it's up to me to make use of it. Starting out was... A dark look crossed over his face, then, as if reliving a bitter memory. Rough. But I'm built for survival. I feel like asking him to elaborate would make things awkward. I decided to veer the topic into a different direction. Doesn't it get lonely? Sometimes. But I'm used to it. He smiled, his eyes light up. Besides, I have you at the moment, don't I? I never thought I'd enjoy having someone around. You must be really special. I'm starting to know a lot more about Michael. He didn't directly say it, but it felt like he was lonelier than he was letting on. Not to mention how he managed to make a home for himself all on his own. I had to wonder if he had anyone at all. Do you have any family around? Family? His expression turned solemn for a moment before he looked sheepish. Remind me how that works again? I get the concept, but based on some books I've read. I don't have what you call parents, if that's what you're asking. My mouth dropped open in shock. No parents? He shrugged and took another bite of toast. Not that I recall. What's that like, living with so many people like you in such close proximity? Huh? That's how it works, right? You and other humans living in one house. And you have this, Dena thing that makes you relate to the rest? That's what makes a family, right? Was he talking about DNA? His definition threw me off, but I had to answer somehow. Not just that. Family is... Oh boy. Love and care about who love and care about you too. I guess they are just people you live in close proximity to. People that you love and care about who love and care about you too. He seemed intrigued. Is that so? That does sound nice. Is there anyone that you love and care about? Of course I do. I have a family. Yeah, I love my friends. Your friends can be considered family too? Yeah. I don't see why we have to be related to be family. I even consider my cat family. Oh, and this is the same for all families? I bit my lip, pondering the question. It would be naive to think that. A lot of families do love and take care for one another, but not everything's perfect. Sometimes that love can be misplaced, or taken advantage of, or even abused. Michael looked thoughtful. So it starts with love? I've read some stories about that. Love, I mean. Though certain feelings just don't make sense to me. At least from a reader's perspective. I guess you'd have to experience it for yourself to understand. He stared at me, unblinking for a moment. Yeah, you might be right. I never considered that. Then again, who would bother loving a monster like me, huh? Oh, you're not a monster. I look like one, don't I? That's besides the point. You're not denying it, though. I'm just saying it's okay. You don't have to lie to me. So, family. Right. To be fair, everyone's definition of family could be different. What about you? What's your definition of family? Michael looked surprised I asked him that question. I Don't know. I've never had one, and I think your answer just confused me more. Well, if you ever figure it out, let me know. Michael stared at the remaining crumbs on his plate before he nodded, avoiding my gaze. Sure. We both felt quiet, the lull of conversation blanketing us in a comfortable silence. All of this family talk, it reminded me of the reason why I'm out here in the first place. To look for my beloved cat, a sight I might never be able to see again. I couldn't help the sinking feeling in my chest, the growing pit in my stomach. I wish I was able to find Huck. You would have loved him. Michael opened his mouth to say something but changed his mind. My voice warbled as a lump formed in my throat. Sorry. I just miss him so much. I keep thinking if I just went looking for him sooner, maybe I would have been able to find him by now. He was quick to speak up. You did your best, Firefly. No one else could have gone to the lengths that you did. You almost risked getting yourself... I'm sure wherever he is, he's doing okay. You really think so? So we're just gonna ignore the first statement? I know so. His voice was laced with a confident assurance despite the worried look on his face. I nodded with a quiet sniff. I hope so. He's just important to me is all. Michael looked like he wanted to reach across the table from me, but sighed instead. Actually, I'm sorry, Arya. I should tell you. Maybe I do have family, now that I think about it. That was the surprise I mentioned before. Wait, really? He nodded. Are you done? I could take you to go meet them right now. I looked down at my plate. During the conversation, I didn't even realize I'd finished the meal. Yeah, I'm done. His movements were quick, stacking our empty plates and mugs and setting them in the sink. He grasped my hand before I could say another word, pulling me up and heading outside with me in tow. And I think that is a good place to stop. Thank you guys so much for watching. In episode 4, we will be meeting Michael's family, so I hope you'll stick around for that. Have a good one, guys. Bye!